Hello and welcome to the How She Made It series. Everything you need to know about becoming a wealthy woman. My name is Tiffany Scott. I am the founder of Sister Suppers. And today we have Dr. Abiola with us. So excited to have you here. Thank you. She is the founder of Empowered Entrepreneurs, and she's a real doctor, y'all. You can see in the background there that she's in her doctor studio right now. And she brings brain-based approaches to health and professional success. And we're going to explain a whole lot more about this over the next, 20 to 30 minutes. So thanks for being here, Dr. Abiola. It's so good to see you. And as I was saying, I love you. So why don't you explain and share a little bit about the amazing things that you do in the world?
Yeah, hello everyone. Nice to see you. My name is Dr. Abiola Oladoke, and a little bit about my background. I've been in the field of psychology, functional medicine, and applied neuroscience for about 17, 18 years. And I got into it because I wanted to actually address my own concerns with my health. And then when I decided to become a business owner, I really started to see how health truly is wealth. And in order to have a successful business, you need to have a successful and healthy life. And also, because that's what's going to actually drive the success of your business. And I focus on the brain and gut health because every part of the body is important, but the brain is the motherboard, the driving force, that is propelling everything forward or stopping everything from happening. So, having a psychological background, but I didn't want to be a counselor and talk to people. I just wanted to fix problems. So went into, the brain aspect of it and actually looking at what's happening in the brain and relating that to how we can be the best in business as we need to be so we can be successful, because I do believe that we have unlimited potential that we can tap to in our brain to help us be successful. And
Absolutely. And what I love about what you do, it's like very scientific, right? So you get to tap into, if you can hear anything in the background, I'm dog sitting at the moment, and the two dogs have decided to come into my office and play together. So that's why I muted myself before. They're very cute, but they can get very loud. So that's what's happening in the background there. But what I love about what you do is it's very technical, it's very scientific. And so you mapped my brain, which was so cool. You literally put on, the I don't know, what do you call it?
the cap of electrodes.
The cap with the electrodes. Literally, she came over to my house and did it. The electrodes on, and then you get this whole brain scan, and it can show, because you work with veterans and people with PSTD, it can show trauma, all that sort of thing, and then you can tap into that on how to change the I'm going to totally bugger the scientific terminology, but you can change the neurosystem of the neurowaves of the brain, right?
Yes, it's if anyone is familiar with the concept of neuroplasticity, this is neuroplasticity at work, every day in our brains. It's actually, looking at what the brain is doing and how well it's working or not working, and then encouraging it to work better by, changing certain frequencies and actually encouraging it to oscillate at, different frequencies that are beneficial to health and well-being and to business prosperity.
And what I love about your journey too, working with veterans with PST and working with people that have had strokes and things like that, but through your journey, what you've seen is what's so great is that you're this can help anyone, and this can help entrepreneurs and help them move through any blocks that they have around, reaching the success that they want, having the goals that they want, creating more money in their lives so they can have more impact. Yes. Hence why you formed Empowered Entrepreneurs.
Yes. Well, I believe that, entrepreneurs are the light workers of the world. An entrepreneur has an idea that could completely transform people's lives. And if they're not firing on all cylinders, as I like to tell some of my clients, like, it's going to be very difficult for that idea to come into the world and to actually be fruitful and to yield tremendous benefits for everybody that comes into contact with that entrepreneur's work. So I believe that the entrepreneur is very, very crucial to the success, like, of our economy, of the world. And I believe that they need to have the best brain that they can possibly have to make sure that they are bringing their vision and their mission to the world in a most impactful way.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. So, what are some of, if you can share some examples of the differences, the before and after differences that you've had when you've worked with some clients?
Oh wow! Oh, I've got tons of stories, but I'll let me see. I'll pick a few. So I recently had, this was about 2 years ago, had a gentleman that was just getting started, with his business, and had really great ideas on what he wanted to do and how he wanted to change the world. And the idea was just very, very impactful. But he couldn't bring that, to the forefront because he was bogged down with there was a lot of trauma growing up. And actually, it was the trauma that propelled this idea that he had. So, from that traumatic experience, something beautiful came out of it. But then when it came the time for him to start to execute, he was paralyzed because the trauma is, he's reliving the trauma all over again, and he was unable to work and do what he wanted to do. So he would not be able to sleep. His mind kept racing, and then he developed severe abdominal issues, as well as, his heart would race a lot. And whenever he would need to get out and talk to people, he was unable to do that. So he couldn't bring his ideas to the people who could help him actually use it as a transformative tool. So he was introduced to me, he was referred to me, and we sat down and talked extensively about what he wanted to do. And as he was talking to me, I realized very quickly the trauma, that he was actually back in that traumatic place, and he was talking to me from that. So I did one of this, I snapped my fingers, and it took him a while to just come out of it. And it's like, and I said, yeah, you're back in that trauma. And he said, oh yeah. And so, fast forward, doing a map of his brain, seeing what his brain is like, being able to explain things to him, working with different areas, and actively changing his, the way that his brain is processing information. And it took a lot of, work. There were a lot of conversations that we will have. I do something called neuro coaching. I actually call it neuroactive coaching, and also neuroactive thinking, which is helping people to dissect and look at what they are thinking and what they are feeling. And then, asking, is that valid? Is that not valid? But it's, so using all of those tools and techniques, we were able to, in 6 months, transform the way that he was showing up to where he was able to get in front of people and talk about his project, what he's doing. And he's now actually making a big difference in the world. And that's one person. I have another executive that was too traumatized from anxiety to stand up and give a presentation in front of 150 people. And she's like, I am so terrified. I will not be able, I cannot do this. So, and terrified to the point where she would throw up and get ill. And so her body and her mind created a way out for her whenever she had to give a presentation. Like, she would get sick and she would throw up. And so they were like, well, she's not fine. She's sick, so she can't give the presentation. And and then it also resulted in a lot of weight gain for her because she was so stressed. Her cortisol level was just through the roof. She was just overly producing, glucocorticoids that were just sending her body into a state of perpetual stress. Then that led to not being able to sleep, and she was on medication for sleep, and then the medication would not work. So it was like this crazy cycle of events and symptoms that were just coming up and debilitating her life. And she said, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to quit my job because I can't function anymore. It was that bad. So working with her, I think it was like in her case, it took about 8.5 months before we were able to get things to get to a place where I felt it was comfortable enough that she could actually say, okay, I can go back to work. And, she was back at work and she lost 40 pounds without any diet or, anything. I mean, it was my basic recommendation was, just walk and move. And so that was all she was doing, but she lost a lot of weight, not because we were doing anything to her, to aid weight loss, but because we were looking at how well her body could function and what was impeding her body's ability to function and also impeding her brain's ability to function. And so once those, I call them cobwebs, are out of the way, we had this very beautiful brain that is now saying, oh, I can actually get some stuff done and I'm not afraid to step out into the world. And she ended up, speaking in front of 350 people, no problem, just stepping up and showing up in her power and talking. And, she was hired by another company. She's living a great life right now. And her sleep, she's sleeping through the night, no drugs. She got off, the medication for sleep and she's just sleeping through the night. She's, her life is great. And she said to me, I tell everyone about you because you literally changed my life. And I said to her, no, we did that together. I did not do that because, it's a partnership working with people. We have to come to an agreement on what our goals and our aspirations are. And then we work on those.
Yeah, there's some like really great success stories right there. So inspiring. How, like you shared a little bit about like why you started to do the work that you do, right? But how did you find this method of working with people's brains? Because you also know a lot about the brain, because the brain is like, I mean, it's the brain. Like there's so much we don't know as well. But how did you find this way of working with the brain?
So, I set out to actually become a psychologist. That was how I wanted to change the world. And just a little bit before that. So I have a genetic condition. I have the sickle cell trait and I have a sister that has a full blown, sickle cell anemia. And aside from the sickle cell, there are other, genetic SNPs and polymorphisms that, my family has. And so I react to a lot of different medications. They just don't work very well for me. And then coming to find out that I actually have some polymorphisms that impede my body's ability to metabolize this medication. So that steered me in the direction of, functional medicine and looking at health from a functional way. With the brain, I wanted to change people's brains. I wanted to know how people thought and how we can use our minds and our thoughts to actually change the world. I have this deep belief that we are all made with deep, compassionate, vats, like deep gallons of them within ourselves. And that something impedes us from actually bringing that to the world. So I set out to understand people's minds. And as I mentioned earlier, when I was doing my psychology training, I got a little frustrated with when we were doing a case study and I couldn't solve the problem for this, it was a fictitious character and I couldn't solve the problem because we were just talking about it and I was like, how do we solve this problem? And so I spoke with one of my professors and she's like, oh, okay, you need to do this other stuff, on top of that. So I went into, studying and understanding the underlying science about the brain and the mind and how both work together and how they influence each other. And so taking the brain, mind, and the body and putting that together, that's how I created, my work and what I do now. But for me personally, there are a lot of things that have changed, in my life. I've had a series of health problems that I was able to transform using these methods and these techniques and these protocols that I have. And I believe that it's a combination of everything that really make us successful, rather than just one thing or the other, that everything has its place. And so, seeing how that transformed me and helped me to actually boldly step forward with the ideas that I have and how I wanted to make a difference in the world. And I said, oh, goodness gracious, if I'm able to do this, how much more other people, and if they have someone who is supporting them in actually making sure that the idea doesn't die with them. That, like one of my mentors says that everybody has like 20 books in them. And then when they die and they do an autopsy, they find the books that they never wrote, in them. And so, I take that very seriously. I mean, it's like it was a joke, and we all laughed when the first time I heard it, and we're like, ah, but then I stopped and I was like, he's right, because we don't move forward because something is holding us back, whether we feel like we don't have the courage, whether we feel like we just don't have the energy. And so looking at what our mind is doing and what our brains are doing, and bringing both areas of ourselves as well as our body together to make sure that we have the tools and the capabilities to just be as successful as we want to be. Because I do believe that we are created to be limitless, and it's bringing that limitless potential and that possibilities, potential to the forefront. So we can be fearless, and we can even move through fear into courage and into action.
That's so inspiring. So inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing that. I always love hearing people's journey story to like why they do what they do now, right? Like the why is so important. So how often do you recommend, so you're in the Bay Area, right?
Yes.
And you literally have to put the cap on and get all the things, like it's like super cool. There's a photo of me somewhere. I'll have to share it of you hooking me up to all the electrons and stuff. So you have an event coming up, right, where people can come and participate, and they'll be able to put the cap on and experience it and then understand what's happening within their brain.
Yes. So February of next year, and we're just about to send the page, put the page up, and start inviting people. So anyone listening, if you would like to join, we will provide the link to that you can join us at that. And at that event, what I do is actually give people a good introduction to their own brain, so they actually understand their own brains, and they get a blueprint of how their brains function and which parts of their brain is more active, and what I call it like looking at and understanding what your geniuses are and how you use your brain to bring out the best in you, and how you can capitalize on that to actually do the work that you want to do. And if there are areas of your brain that, or a part of you, so it's like a brain personality, through that 3-day event. But they get to really understand different functions in different areas of the brain and how that applies to them and how that ties into their business ideas and their work as an entrepreneur or as a business owner. So it's very, very enlightening, and it goes into, I've had people that have come to such, and they're like, oh my gosh, now I know why I respond this way to people, and why my husband responds this way, because you really get to understand each other's personalities and what makes us tick, at the brain level, and not just I feel like I'm that way. And to be able to have your brain say, yes, this is how I show up in the world, and this is how I can best be of service to you with your business ideals, it can catapult a person's business to the next level, to where they know what's great for them to do and what's not so great, or what they don't want to do, even if they're great at it, and that they can outsource. So it's really, really illuminating, for people. And I do enjoy it because I get to geek out with people. I only do it with 10 to 15 people at a time, because it requires a safe environment and a very close-knit environment, because we are mapping every single brain that is there. And they get an opportunity to actually also talk with me at length later on after the event, because once we finish the map, we want to then, I want to do in-depth analysis of what's happening and really be able to help that person craft a blueprint of what, their businesses are like and what they can do with knowing how their brain wants to support them. And then if there are any areas that are not functioning as well, we work with how do we then, influence and improve these areas. And, that's really neuroplasticity, in action right there. So the event is in February. It's February 22nd, 23rd, and 24th of 2019 in Mountain View. And so we would love to have anyone that wants to join us. And you can go to the link that we provide and you can actually register to be a part of the event. It will be phenomenal. It's truly life-changing.
That's so cool, because I also love like how, you're winding this out for more people to experience. Like, you were working one-on-one with people and you were seeing the transformation and the healing and all that sort of thing. And now you're like, your entrepreneurs are the evolution. They get to create the businesses that create impact. So I want to support them. And you're an entrepreneur. You said you've been an entrepreneur since you're like 13 years old.
Yes, 13 years old. I've been in one business or the other. And I've also worked, I've worked for companies. I worked for the government for about 12 and a half years. I was in the United States Army and separated after 5.5 years. After September 11 actually happened, it was about a year and a half after September 11th that I separated. And it was actually that led me to, and with the experiences of my colleagues that stayed on, and just some of the things that, people that I used to know and work with, that they experienced. I mean, there are some people that have, died. Like you mentioned, my work with veterans. So I take the same approach to help entrepreneurs, and I also help veterans and active duty members and first responders as well, because they do such an important job. And, the job is stressful, and the things that they see on the job can really make the brain start to see the world in a very dark light that makes our lives not very pleasant and can create stress. So I have a nonprofit where we work with that. So that's one of my ventures. I have two clinics, one on the Central Coast in Arroyo Grande, and then another one in the Bay Area, in Berkeley. I work with people in different parts of the U.S. and it's really great. I have brain retreats that I do, and I have a couple of other interests that I'm involved in. So I have 6 brands.
Oh, we need to work on that.
Yeah. Yes. So I call them my little tentacles.
Yeah, I love that.
That I'm involved in. But it's because I find myself able to do those things effortlessly and with ease because of understanding and knowing how my brain and my body actually works, and giving my brain and my body the things that support them. And it's a lot of my clients say, how is it that you're able to do all of this and you're not tired? And I said, well, I'm not, because yes, I work on my brain. And I always tell them, I'm the first client, for myself with my work, because I practice where I preach. And I am also an example for a lot of people to understand, oh, wow, you can do the things that you want to do and really live that limitless life, and that life of possibilities that you want to have. I do believe that we can have it all. And that's what I live every day.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you know your brain so you can work easily and effortlessly on 6 brands. That's pretty cool. And a true entrepreneur, where never just working on one thing, right?
Yes. It's like I'm the serial entrepreneur. Yeah. One of the things, that I discovered about my own brain. So I used to joke, and I still joke once in a while, actually, with people. And I was saying, I grew up in Nigeria, and I said, if I had been born in the US and I grew up here, I probably would have been one of those kids that they would have said, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with this child. because she's all over the place. Because it looks like I could have ended up actually being one of those scatterbrained, people. But growing up where I grew up and having the parents that I have, my parents really encouraged, me to just get curious with everything. And so whatever I was interested in, I would go study it. And because I'm book smart, I love reading and I love studying and I love learning. So it was very easy for me to just be a geek with everything. And my parents just encouraged that. And so I have a lot of degrees and I have a lot of different, certifications and different training, but it's in everything that I love. And my 6 brands are all around health and well-being. So in my mind, it's one thing. I just have them doing like 6 different
you
things.
have an overarching brand and
yes,
tentacles underneath it.
So exactly.
Before you were talking about different definitions of success, and one of the questions I ask on this series is, what's your definition of being a wealthy woman? What does that mean to you?
So for me, wealth, my definition of being a wealthy woman is actually having the best body and the best brain that you can have. And the reason why I say that is because you can have something that actually generates a significant amount of money for you, but if that's something that is generating that significant amount of money for you were to go extinct or were to perish, that's it. Your source of money or your source of income is gone. But if your body and your brain are in the best possible place that they could be, then you can, start again and you can generate wealth over and over and over. So the biggest, my idea of being wealthy for me is actually having the best brain and the best body that I can have, because then you can reinvent yourself at any time. You can start any other career that you want. You can start as many businesses as you want to start because you have the wherewithal, to do that. So that's what being wealthy means to me, is having the best brain and the best body, because I do believe that the brain and the body are the driving force in actually making sure you are as successful and as wealthy in terms of financial wealth as you want to be. But
I love that. I totally agree with that. It's something that my dad used to say to us as kids growing up. Like, my dad had been very successful on and off throughout, born entrepreneur, millionaire many a times and bankrupt other times, like on the entrepreneur journey. But the one thing he would always say was, there's nothing more important than your health. There's nothing more important than your health. And you're talking about mind and body, and I can so relate to that. I love what you shared. And of course, it's in alignment with the work that you do. So one last question before we wrap up. Well, there's 2 actually. The first one is, if you're reading a book at the moment, can you share about that book? And if you're not, what's a favorite book that you would recommend?
There, I'm actually, okay, this is another thing. I'm reading 3 books at the moment.
Of course you are. Of course you are.
Oh my goodness. This is so fun. So one of the books that I'm actually reading, so one of the books I'm reading is actually completely like so geeky. I would not recommend this to anyone unless you're a scientist. But it's actually, I'm reading a book about endocrine disruptors. So the things that are messing up our endocrine system, and they in turn mess up the brain. So there's that one book. I'm also reading another book about, longevity, because and those 2 tie to the work that I do, about, living long and actually transforming your health so your cells are vibrant. So I'm reading a book about longevity. And then there is one book that's kind of like, so I go back and I read Napoleon Hill books often. I have every single one of the books that he's written and released, into the public. And so, but right now I'm reading a book, called 3 Feet from Gold. So it's not written by Napoleon Hill, but it's actually, it came from the Napoleon Hill Foundation. So I'm reading that with Sharon Lecter and Greg, forgot his last name. But yes, so 3 Feet from Gold. endocrine disruptors and a book about longevity. So
Awesome.
for anyone listening, I would actually say that, 3 Feet from Gold would be the one that I would recommend, that if anybody wanted to pick up something, because it's a very enriching book that actually encourages you. And 3 Feet from Gold is one of the analogies that I use when I'm talking with people about, not giving up and just keeping that momentum going and just chipping away at something little by little, because you just never know when you're going to strike gold.
Yeah.
And dig deep with it. And so 3 Feet from Gold is a really great book.
Yeah, I love that story that he shares in Think and Grow Rich about being three feet from gold. That always stuck with me as well. And I think there's probably some women in this community that will definitely, some healers and people that will work with gut health, that will be interested in your endocrine system book as well.
Yeah. So, yeah. And I know all of those books are, they are available on Amazon. Of course, I love buying things off of Amazon. I should have bought shares in Amazon a long time ago, but, but I definitely, recommend 3 Feet from Gold, because it really talks about just persevering and, staying, tenacious and staying on the train. And which, as entrepreneurs and business owners, it's important, because we are going to run into dips, in our business. Like, I see it as, I see businesses as emotions. I explain emotions to people. I'm like, we're emoting because we move in and out of different states and different feelings and different emotional, minds that we have. And so that's how I also see, having a business and being a business owner. And, we need things that encourage us to continue on that journey. And one other book, I'm not reading that right now, but that really was monumental and that I do recommend to a lot of my clients, because, when we're working together about the brain, the concept of money comes up, because that's one of the things that I work with them with, is like, how are you looking at money and how is money serving you? And so a long time ago, someone recommended a book about how to actually manage your money as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, to where you can ride out the wave. And the book is called Profit First.
I knew you were going to say that book. I love that book. I recommend it to everyone.
So really
loves that book.
Yes, apparently. So really transformational. So that I recommend that book a lot. Well, there's a new edition out, but I recommend it a lot to my clients. And I say, follow what it says in the book.
And the audiobook's really fun too, because he reads it and he's funny.
He is. He's very funny.
Really funny. He makes something that can be really dry, really, really good. Okay, last question.
Sure.
You have something really special to offer the people that listen to this interview. So can you share about that? Because it's amazing.
Yes. So I want to offer you, so, with my work with people, we have a lot of assessments that really give a good idea of what's happening, in the brain. Even when we don't do the map yet, we have different assessments. So I always invite, entrepreneurs that I meet to take the assessments, and, they are a little bit, long. But with those assessments, I also, as part of it, when they take the assessments and I give them a discovery session to where they actually, I explain what the assessment is, like what their results are, and just give them a general idea about what's happening in different areas of their brain with their cognitive skill set. And so I, want to offer that to everyone that is listening. Link will be provided to you where you can actually set up the discovery session with me. And what happens when you set that up is you will get the links to complete the assessments, prior to the discovery session. So I have some time to actually look at your results, and then I can talk about, what's going on with you during the discovery session. And it is $1,000, session that I love to gift to people, because I want people to understand what's going on, and they can go, oh, okay, here's what I want to change. So I don't make the offer to everybody. I'm pretty selective, but Tiffany is my friend. She's got a great community of women that I want everybody to actually understand what's happening with their cognition and how they can best harness their own cognitive prowess. So I offer that to you.
That's so great. So just to confirm that this is a gift, it's an investment of your time, but it's well worth it. I have done this with Dr. Abbott. Oh my God. How long have I known you for now? And I'm not even saying your name right. Dr. Abiola. I've done this. I've done the mapping. She's taken me through what the mapping meant. It's amazing. So this is like an introduction into that, and you'll get a lot of information and knowledge from it. So thank you for being so generous with that, because I know it's
absolutely
your time. It's your time and your energy. I think that's really generous. So we'll get the link to you for you to be able to sign up to do that. And I'll also make sure that if you're in the Bay Area, or you can always fly in, that you can go and attend her events in February as well. Thank you so much. It's so good to see you.
Thank you for having
Always
me.
good to see you.
Appreciate it. Thank you so
for
much.
the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.